The British royal family has been around for over 1,000 years, and in that time, they've collected some rules that are absolutely bizarre. We're not talking about bowing or curtsying. We're talking about rules so strange, so specific, and so old that most Brits have never even heard of them. Some date back to the 12th century. Some are still legally enforced today, and one of them exists purely because a king once stormed into Parliament with armed soldiers and lost his head for it. By the end of this, you'll understand exactly why swans, aeroplanes, board games of state, and even a black dress packed in a suitcase all matter more to the crown than you'd ever expect. Here are the forgotten rules the royal family still follows. If you find yourself wandering along the River Thames, watching a graceful white bird glide past, you are actually looking at royal property. It sounds like a fairy tale, but the law is remarkably precise. Since at least 1186, the British Crown has held a royal prerogative over all unmarked mute swans, known scientifically as Cygnus olor, swimming in the open waters of England and Wales. In the medieval period, these birds were prized as a luxury food for grand banquets. Today, this ancient right is maintained through a highly organized annual census called Swan Upping. Every July, a team in traditional scarlet uniforms rows along the river from Sunbury-on-Thames to Abingdon. Leading the expedition is the King's Swan marker, David Barber. His job is to catch, weigh, and health check the cygnets, modernizing a feudal claim into a vital conservation project. But the king does not have a total monopoly. The Crown shares these Thames rights with two historic London livery companies, the Worshipful Company of Vintners and the Worshipful Company of Dyers. During the census, their birds are given distinctive leg rings, while the king's swans remain unmarked. Down in Dorset, the famous Abbotsbury Swanery operates under a completely separate, independent historic grant. So, while the old myth says the king owns every single swan in the country, the legal reality is much more specific. He only owns the unmarked mute ones on open water. It is a subtle distinction, but a legally binding one. If a wild, unmarked swan is swimming on an open river, it belongs to the king. If claiming wild river birds seems eccentric, other royal guidelines handle a much more modern and slightly morbid form of survival. It is an unwritten protocol, rather than a formal statute, that two direct heirs to the throne should never travel on the same aircraft. This precaution took root during the mid-20th century, an era when aviation carried a highly publicized risk. The logic is simple. The Crown cannot afford to lose both the sovereign and the next in line in a single accident, an event that would throw the succession into chaos. Today, the protocol is a flexible safeguard rather than an absolute law. You may have spotted Prince William flying alongside young Prince George on family holidays, but once an heir reaches age 12, the security team usually steps in. It is a polite but firm reminder that behind the first-class travel lies a constant calculation of dynastic survival. If you ever watch the state opening of Parliament, you will witness a bizarre moment where a royal official has a door slammed directly in their face. This is a carefully choreographed rehearsal of an event that once pushed the nation into a bloody civil war. The rule is absolute. The reigning monarch is strictly banned from crossing the threshold of the House of Commons chamber. To find out why, you have to travel back to the 4th of January, 1642. King Charles I, furious with Parliament, marched to the Commons chamber with a guard of armed soldiers. He was hunting for 5 rebellious members of Parliament, including John Pym and John Hampden, intending to arrest them for treason. But the politicians had been tipped off and fled down the River Thames. Charles looked around, realized his targets were gone, and remarked that all the birds are flown. This aggressive breach of parliamentary privilege shattered the relationship between Crown and Parliament, fueling the English Civil War that ultimately led to Charles losing his head. Since that day, no British sovereign has ever set foot in the Commons chamber. Today, when the King wants to address Parliament, he must send his messenger, Blackrod, to summon the MPS to the House of Lords. As Blackrod approaches the Commons doors, they are slammed shut, symbolising the House's independence. Only after 3 knocks is the messenger admitted. It is a striking reminder that the Crown does not step into the people's chamber uninvited. If you ever meet a royal in public and ask for an autograph, you will always be politely refused. The rule is designed for simple security. A royal signature is a powerful legal tool, and preventing forgery is a matter of strict palace protocol. Catherine, Princess of Wales, proved how tightly this is enforced during the 2023 Chelsea Flower Show. Asked by school children to sign her name, she gently declined, explaining, "My name's Catherine. I'm not allowed to write my signature, it's just one of those rules." She drew them a small sketch of a flower instead, a warm, modern compromise for a centuries-old security measure. If you ever spot the king driving, you might be surprised to learn he does so completely without a license. In the United Kingdom, all driving licenses are issued in the sovereign's name. This creates a delightful bureaucratic paradox. The monarch cannot issue a license to themselves, and legally, no official has the authority to do it for them. The same logic applies to registration plates on private royal vehicles. Far from being a modern indulgence, this exemption was highly practical for Queen Elizabeth II. She famously drove her Land Rovers around Windsor well into her 90s, a habit built on wartime experience. During the Second World War, she trained as a military mechanic and driver in the Auxiliary Territorial Service, proving she was more than qualified, with or without the paperwork. If you were to peek inside a royal suitcase before any overseas flight, you would find one non-negotiable item tucked away: a complete black mourning outfit. This strict travel protocol was born from a sudden crisis in February 1952. While staying at a remote lodge in Kenya, Princess Elizabeth received word that her father, King George VI, had died. When her plane landed back in London, she realized she had no black clothing with her. She had to wait inside the aircraft until a suitable dark dress was rushed on board, allowing her to face the waiting cameras as the new queen. Ever since, absolute readiness has been the rule, ensuring no royal is ever caught unprepared for tragedy. Imagine having to ask your grandmother's formal permission to get married, knowing that if she says no, your wedding is legally invalid. For centuries, British royals lived under this exact reality, thanks to the Royal Marriages Act of 1772. Infuriated by his brothers marrying commoners, King George III forced a law through Parliament requiring all descendants of George II to obtain the monarch's official consent to wed. Without it, marriages were legally void and children deemed illegitimate. This sweeping law lasted for 243 years until the succession to the Crown Act of 2013 finally modernized the rule. Today, consent is only required for the first 6 people in the line of succession. If they marry without approval, the marriage remains valid, but they lose their right to the throne. Prince Harry was the first to receive this updated consent in 2018 when Queen Elizabeth II signed his formal instrument of consent. It proves that while Parliament can modernize these ancient rules, they still hold power over the lives of those closest to the throne. These peculiar rules do more than preserve history. They quietly ensure the modern monarchy's survival, keeping the illusion alive. After all, if the mystery fades, so does the magic. Which rule surprised you most? Subscribe for more stories like this.